Recording in progress.
There we go. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our session tonight. We're going to talk about choosing a homeschooling supervising board and the program, and we're going to talk about filling out the home education plan. So I am Judy Arnell. I have been homeschooling 24 years, 5 kids, and my work is in child development and brain development. I actually teach. I've taught for Alberta Health Services for 13 years and the University of Calgary continuing education for 13 years. I have 4.5 university graduates that all 5 have graduated high school, gotten a diploma, credits, and transcripts. And yeah, so we have books available if you need more information. We have the Happy Homeschooling Handbook, which is 120 pages on everything I talk about, but in more detail, and just a lot of encouragement for new people. And then I've written a book called Unschooling to University because my 5 children were unschooled and until high school, where they did a more self-directed high school program. And you probably found us on Facebook. We think teachers are absolutely amazing working with the resources they have. They're doing the best job they can, but a lot of us feel that the system needs improvement. So whether you're a first-time home educator or you're coming to home education after a year, maybe a couple years, you're very experienced, I hope to offer some tips tonight. So just a little overview of there's so many choices in Alberta education. There these 3 choices, so the northwest corner, the northeast corner, the southwest corner, are all school responsible. So it's no longer a matter of where education takes place. As you know, with COVID, a lot of education took place at home, but it wasn't true home education. It was school delivered at home. So it's not so much where it takes place, but who is responsible. And in these 3 quadrants, it is the school responsible, funded for teaching your child, whether it's classroom, print, or online. And that's how much funding they get to teach your child. The only quadrant where parents are in the driver's seat, now they don't even have to teach, they take responsibility for their children's education. They keep it. They never have given it away in the first place for some people, is home education. Now, you also can do a version of home education, which is partly outsourced to Alberta Education and partly under parent-led, and that's called shared responsibility. But other than that, home education is very unique. It's the only quadrant that gets funding to the parent. It's the only quadrant where the parent can choose to follow the curriculum outcomes of the government or just follow 22 very basic broad outcomes of home education. And it's really, really unique in that way. So anything else other than parent-led home education is school, no matter where it's delivered. Okay, now under home education, so under that southeast quadrant there are 2 kinds. There is supported home education, where a parent would notify with a school board. Doesn't have to be the school board in your city, in your town. It can be, you can be in Lethbridge and you can pick a board from Peace River if you want. It's called Willing Non-Resident School Board. So any board in the province could supervise your home education program. There's also the unsupported choice where every year you would just notify with the government and be done. So you don't have to wait for an acceptance. You don't have to wait for permission. You don't get any funding. You don't get any visits. You don't get a written home ed plan that you need to do. You don't get any support and you don't get any credits for high school. Well, your child doesn't. You probably already have some. That's it. You're done. You fill out that form and you are done for the year. But if you want funding, you want support, you want to be able to call up your facilitator and say, help, you might want the supported version of home education. And that's what tonight's session is. How do you pick a school board and how do you fill out that home education plan? Okay, well, if you choose this, you need to wait for acceptance. Now, the school board has 15 business days to let you know in writing whether they accept your child or not. So it's a good time to start now. You have up until September 29th to do that. Please don't leave it to the last day. People do, and it is a nightmare for those poor school boards. A lot of them just don't get all the paperwork in, they don't get your ed plans, they don't get in time in order for this year's funding. The funding this year is $850, and you get a visit in the fall with a very supportive facilitator who is also a certified teacher, comes out, helps you with any questions you have on what you need to do. They also come out again in March, April, May for the final visit. They write up a progress plan, which is a legal document and something that you can put in your child's report card file. And with this, you need to submit a home education plan with your notification form because the school board is accepting both. They're accepting your notification, they're accepting your written home ed plan with that notification. You'll get lots of support and encouragement. And if you have a child who wants to do home education high school, don't want to do online, don't want to do classroom, they don't want to do correspondence, they want to do self-directed or parent-taught high school, or anybody else taught high school. Again, you're the general contractor, you don't have to teach, you can procure anything else to teach your child. So they would have to go through notifying with a homeschool board to do that and get credits through Section 6 for a high school government diploma. Okay, this is the notification form for just notifying with the government. So it says really on it, not supervised by a school authority. This is a notification form for a homeschooling board. So if it doesn't say this on it, it's this one. So you know this one. And it's about a 4-page form. I think the government one's 2 pages. If we have Alberta Homeschooling Association has a video on our website on how to fill it out. This part really gets parents. They're not too sure whether they're going to achieve the outcomes in the Alberta Programs of Study or achieve the outcomes in the schedule included in the home education regulation. So this is the one, if you check this, you don't have to do a home education plan. You're agreeing to follow the government curriculum. And that means you have to cover about 1,400 outcomes from grades 1 to 9. Do you really want to do that? Even if you want to do that, it's much better to check mark this one, because then if you don't get something done, it's no big deal. So this one is the 22 vague solo outcomes according to the home education regulation. So I would always suggest check this one, even if you're going to do either or. Okay. The other thing to keep in mind is that If your child wants high school credits, they definitely have to enroll, notify with the supervising school board, and they have to meet the outcomes for the Alberta Programs of Study in those high school courses. They got a lot of flexibility and personalization in how to meet those outcomes, but they really do have to meet those outcomes, or at least a good percentage of them, 70 to 100%. And that's what this says. It says there are implications that kids might not get a high school diploma if they use programs different from the Alberta Programs of Study, different than Alberta curriculum. Although any student in a home education program may write a high school diploma examination. So that's very good. It acknowledges that kids learn from other places, other ways, and they can challenge the diploma exam, and they can get 100% of the mark stands for the course mark for entering university and other post-secondary schools. Okay, so let's say you decided you're going the supervising school board route. Now, this is a time you have to pick a board. That's what you have to do. Number one is pick a supervising board. How do you do that? Well, there's a lot there. We always refer people to our handy dandy little list here. This is constantly updated. It's a Google Doc, so it's easy to update. And we have a nice, every year we ask them, are you still supporting home education? Do you offer shared responsibility? It's a little tough to see on my tiny little screen here, but hopefully on your screen you can see things better. I'm just going to move this taskbar. So we ask what programs they offer. All of them have to offer home education. Are they faith-based? Are they independent schools, or are they big public schools? Are they secular? Do they offer high school Section 6 for credits? Do they offer shared responsibility? Do they offer types of school delivered? Are they unschooling friendly? Have their facilitators educated their own children? Do they offer purchase orders or lending libraries? And for those people who notify after September 29th, does this board accept mid-year students, which we call rescues? Kids that parents pull them out after September 29th all the way to next June. And with that, there's a lot of variation. Some charge fees, some will charge no fees, some won't take any. It's very much depends. So in October, November, then we're going to pull the boards again and ask them what's the scoop this year. So these are all the willing non-resident school authorities that would be happy to accept your child. Okay, back to PowerPoint. All righty. Now, excuse me, if you decide to go the supported route, you can go two ways too. You can go a non-resident homeschooling board or school, or you could just stay with your resident school. Maybe you're with Edmonton Public, or maybe you're with Calgary Board of Education. Both of those do offer a home education department. So if you're pulling your child from a school, you want to home educate, but you want to stay with the same division, it's good. It's easier to move within your division. It's easier to move from school to classroom to online and back. It's a lot harder once your funding's gone to a division to go with a different independent school or different school division. They don't, once that division has your funding, you're kind of stuck with them for the year. The public board must be supportive. Sometimes they tend to be a bit schooly because they're so used to an institutional administration. But If you want less schooling, more family, home edy, I would say go more with an independent school where a lot of their facilitators have home educated their own kids. Now, if you pull your child out of a school of choice, that would include charter schools, French immersion, very specific topic schools that you might not get a seat back in there if you pull your child out. You would have to hopefully get back in mid-year or maybe next year or in 5 years, but you're guaranteed a seat for your child in your local resident public school, but not in your schools of choice. Non-resident boards, they're very experienced in home education. A lot of their facilitators have home educated and they're knowledgeable about practices and regulation. They all must be supportive too. I'm going to take longer than 20 minutes here. Okay, who do you pick? That's the question we get all the time. Who do you pick? Well, I think the biggest part is looking at what grade your child is, how old they are they extroverted, introverted? Do they want lots of activities with other kids, or do they love being homebodies? And then looking at the board's programs. Do they offer activities? Do they offer special days like Halloween parties, Christmas concerts, things like that? That's very normal. Home education, you get all those things, but it depends on the board, right? A lot of the big public school boards have the economies of scale to run those kinds of programming. A lot of independent schools may not have that. But what independent schools offer is they do have facilitators that are very well versed in home education. Check out what their funding rules are. A lot of school boards have rules, their own list of no-nos they're not going to fund. That is over and above what the government says they're not going to fund, just because they have different experiences of what the government claws back from them. You don't have to worry. Once the school board pays out your reimbursement, they cannot ask for it back if the government refuses to fund them. They've lost that money. They can't ask it back from you. So kind of a good thing. And ask if their staff gets any professional development in home education, the uniqueness of home ed. In university teachers college, there's not any mandatory course in home education. I think there's a few options, but it's not mandatory. So a lot of teachers who become facilitators don't know much about home education, and you need to be supported by somebody who knows what they're doing. Talk to people who grumble about different boards as well as people who rave about boards. That's one reason why we don't, on the Facebook groups, encourage public reviews, is that you're only going to get the people who rave. The people who have grumbles about particular boards could face consequences from the staffing. That's happened a lot in the past. It keeps on happening. And it's just not a very good forum in which to assess your child's future school authority. If you have a child going into high school, what you could do is pick one course, say Phys Ed 10, and ask your school board that you're interviewing what that looks like. How much work would they have to do to get Phys Ed 10 credits? And compare the requirements. You can compare them for distance education and for home education. I know there are some school boards that require 4 essays for English and Social Studies high school, and there are some school boards that only require 2 essays for social studies in high school. So there's big differences out there. So ask the questions. We also, on Alberta Homeschooling, there's on the website, there is a list of questions to ask. I'm going to go over there now. Here we go. Wait, my taskbar is always in the way here. um, Now it's still in the way. Okay, here we go. If you go to the school board tab, you'll get lots of videos the school boards have put up for this year. And right at the end, there's general guidelines in choosing a school board and a whole list of questions. Okay, so there's lots of good information there. Questions for funding, questions for resources, facilitator, field trips, classes and workshops, policies. Yeah, so pick what matters to you. If you have little kids, probably activities matter more. If you have older kids, probably maybe how they grant high school credits matters more. Okay, and then general guidelines we'll kind of talk about today. There. Okay, so back to our PowerPoint, who to pick. So here's some generalizations. Now, I'm not saying this applies to everybody, but generally speaking, the big public school boards tend to be less picky about receipts just because they have less clawbacks than the independent schools. Yes. There's more activities offered due to economies of scale. But the trade-off is they adhere to a very rigid system. I know some school boards that ask parents to fill out report cards to them so they can give parents back report cards. It doesn't make sense to me, but parents are never to be put in the position of doing a school board's administration work. So you have every right to say, no, I'm not doing that. I don't get paid to do admin work, and you don't. Big boards tend to have a lot of rules, not in the regulations. And I just kind of talked about that. The smaller independent schools, they tend to understand home education. They understand that you come with a family, you have younger kids underfoot. They get all that. They help you with flexibility and curriculum choices. And if you want to be left alone, they respect that wish. They are supposed to be supportive of unschooling, and their job is to advocate to the government on your behalf. And that's kind of why you want to pick supervising over unsupervised, just because they provide the buffer between you and the government. The government would never contact you directly. They go to the school board contacts you. Whereas under unsupervised, you are dealing with the government yourself. And we haven't had any test cases yet of the government asking to or closing down a home ed program, but they have the power to do that. It's very clear in the regulations, and it falls in the power of the director of field services, which is one person who may not know anything about home education. So it's a little dicey there. They also give you more suggestions. Okay, so I am now, a lot of school authorities kind of gloss over their home education program just because it's not paid very well for them. They get half of your funding of $850 to do their admin work. They have to share half with you, so you get $850 per child. As compared to classroom or distance education, the school gets about $11,000 per child per year. So you can see why some school boards don't want all that money walking out the door to home education. In distance education, you are not the teacher, whether your child is on teacher-directed, paper-based resource, blended, online. All those are teacher taught. You cannot be the teacher. And if you are the teacher, you shouldn't be. That's a violation of the Education Act. Only certificated teachers can deliver and teach the curriculum, which is 1,000 hours in grades 1 to 9 and 950 hours in grades 10 to 12. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Now, I've been to a few school board sessions, open houses, and some of the myths they tell you is unbelievable. That's why I wrote the Happy Homeschooling Handbook, because you need to know the real scoop. Different from what the government tells you, different from what the school boards tell you, you need to know how home education really works in a family with lots of kids and a love relationship, because a lot of people don't understand. It's not like school. It's not like teacher-student relationships. Okay, so some of the myths, let's go through those. I mentioned it the last slide. Print-based, online, teacher-directed. They tell you that you teach, you give the information to the student. That is baloney. You do not teach. The materials have to teach, or the teacher has to teach through synchronous online sessions. Okay, you do not teach at all. You are in the supporting role, just like your child's going off to a classroom. That's it. A lot of them say unschooling is a lot of work. Don't know how that is, because I've unschooled and it's been a lot easier than following curriculum, that's for sure. A lot of them say there's no diploma on home education. Not true. You can absolutely have your child get a government diploma on home education. A lot of them say, oh, no, there's no way that kids can get credits. And what they're saying is there's no way their board is offering credits. But what they don't say is that there are other boards out there willing to support credits for government transcripts through high school home education. Okay. A lot of those boards just want to push your child to online just because of the funding. Absolutely. A lot of boards say you can't use Costco workbooks. You can use whatever you want. A lot of parents do buy those $10 Costco workbooks just to give them an idea of a skeleton outline of what their child's supposed to know for the year. And a lot of presentations from school boards are opinion. They're not based on research. So it's a few people's opinions. So be sure to challenge them on that. Ask them, where's the research behind that? So I've covered this. All the school programs have to be taught by a teacher. Telling parents what curriculum they can and can't use. Parents can use whatever they want, including no curriculum, called unschooling. Red flags, telling parents that homeschooling is hard, not true. A child's learning is intrinsic. They never stop learning ever. So that's not a problem. Telling parents which methodology they should or shouldn't use. On home education, you control everything. How you teach, what you teach, when you teach, if you teach. You control it all. You're in the driver's seat, and the school is in the support role. Whereas if it's teacher directed, paper-based, online classroom, the teacher's in the driver's seat and you're in the support role. Excuse me. Yeah, so parents know best, and the schools must support whatever the parents choose, because that's in the Education Act. School boards shouldn't tell parents how to parent. That's not their realm. They shouldn't be doing that. Not professional, and they shouldn't tell parents how to handle their own education routines. It's nice if they offer suggestions if asked, but really, they don't need to do that. And it's really bad when the school boards tell parents that their kids will not get a government diploma transcripts, scholarships, or entrance into post-secondary. Okay, here's something. This was the Alberta Education website before COVID. And basically they said they do not recommend students younger than 10 years of age for online learning. So kindergarten to grade 6 should be experiential learning. Grades 7 to 9 lends itself better for online learning, just so you know. Okay, there we go. Okay, so I'm not going to talk about this, but yeah. How to make the plan. Okay, so really, when you're starting out, all you really need is a library card and the internet. Find out how your child learns. You don't have to follow a particular curriculum. If you purchase curriculum, you get everything in place for science and math and social studies, fine. If by October it's not working, ditch it. Feel free to get rid of it, sell it, buy something else, try something else. You have to find what works for each child, and it's got to work for you too. So if you choose to follow the schedule of learning outcomes, which is solo, there's 22 outcomes that your child has to master by age 20. So if you don't get to half of these by the end of the year, no problem. Move it to the next year. So in the home ed plan, it shouldn't be more than 2 pages for 22 outcomes, really. And you don't have to get super specific. All you have to do is look at the outcome. For example, here, read for information, understanding, and enjoyment. How super flexible is that? So here you put in your activities, put in what resources you want to purchase, and this column, how to assess. Now, I find my resources tend to be my activities. So I just put them all in one column. But if you want, you could separate it and put it in 2 columns, maybe activities and resources. But if my kids are going to read, for how we're going to meet this outcome is we are going to go to the library and have library books. Actually, I think I have a grade 6 one I can show you. Yeah, I do. Excellent. Just a sec. Let me make this bigger here. I can. Not much bigger. There we go. A bit bigger. So, yeah. Okay, so this is a plan and this is it bigger. Let's go custom slideshow here. There. Maybe you can see that. I hope you can. My screen is so tiny. But here, so this is following the 22 outcomes. If you count them, there's 20 here, and the 2 extra are something like love lifelong learning. It's very easy. So this is your English language arts column. And you can see how I've done this. This is grade 6 for all 5 of my kids. It was passed by 10 boards, both public and independent. So I'd write down library books, home library and internet is reading the Archie series, comics, Garfield, abridged classics, and will attempt the Harry Potter series and Kenneth Opel series. And read Anne of Green Gables, Island of the Blue Dolphins, and Ella Enchanted. Dad will continue reading to blah, blah, nightly from various fiction and nonfiction texts. That's what we're going to do. Now, come May, if we haven't done all this, no problem. We just meet with our facilitator in the spring and say, and she or he goes, oh, have you done this? And we go, no, didn't do that. No, didn't get around to that. That's okay, because there are going to be other things we might add on here. Maybe halfway through the year, your child decides they hate Garfield and they really love something else. Game of Thrones, grade 6, I don't know. But yes, you can add that in. But you do want to add in anything you want to buy. So adding in the Archie series allowed me to claim all the Archie comic books that we bought, tons of them secondhand, boxes of them, so I could reclaim them. Also, if you're buying things secondhand, you may have to create your own receipt. And if you're buying them on Facebook Marketplace, just get the name of the person selling, their phone number, how much it was, and maybe if you can get them to sign a receipt, but they might not want to, but that's okay. You don't need to get it signed. So this is it. This is English language arts. If you want to go into more detail, if you want to use the good and the beautiful curriculum, have at it. Fill your boots. We were unschoolers, so we tended to use the same home ed plan every year because we don't know what we're going to do. Unschooling is just letting life unfold and learning opportunities happen here and there. You can't plan for them. So we tended to just use our basic ed plan from year to year and modify it by the end of the year. Here's another outcome: write and speak clearly and appropriately for the context. So here, as required for grocery shopping, notes, story writing, if desired. All we were going to do for assessment, it was one writing sample. We were going to give our facilitator one writing sample. That takes the pressure off. If my kids don't want to write, and having 4 boys, they did not want to write until at least high school or on Reddit, we didn't have to do any writing at that point. Didn't want to. Assessment for the reading for information, we kept lists of library books we took out. Whether we read them or not, we just had them. We had proof that we had the resource. Now, that's it for English language arts. This is the mathematics one right here. Use math to solve problems in business, science, and daily life. So we bought a Perplexus, board games, Monopoly, Blocus, play with Lego, pattern blocks, fraction overlays, volume cubes, and nets. Play video games of all genre. Yay, gotta get those reimbursed. Work on ratio and percent by shopping for discounts and figuring out GST. That's real life. And I would submit photographs showing my kids played with all these things. That's it for math. Science, understand the physical world, ecology, and diversity of life. Understand the scientific method, the nature of science and technology, and their application to daily life. This is science. So under science, my kids love science. And most kids love science. They are natural scientists, right? They love to experiment. They just hate writing lab reports, which you don't have to make them do. But I included nature walks, discussions, videos from the library like Bill Nye, the Science Guy, How Things Work, Mythbusters, and Magic School Bus. That was our science until about grade 8. So much fun. We go to the zoo, we go to the Bow Habitat Station, we go to the Glenbow Museum, visit parks, visit Ralph Klein Wetlands, visit the WestJet field trip, and we build with Lego Connects, paper, wood, and mechanical structures, nature hikes, and geocaching with Dad. That was our science program. You can see we were not big curriculum people. We liked play, games, and field trips. And the assessment there was just observation. So I observed the kids doing that. I told the facilitator I observed. That was enough proof. And we threw in a photograph or two there. Same with down here. We did more things here. And again, we actually did all that in a year. It was really good. You might want to keep notes if you've done that in a year. And that way with your spring visit, your facilitator's coming out and saying, so tell me what you did for science this year. And your child's sitting there going, I don't know. And then you're sitting there going, oh gosh, I can't remember. So it kind of helps if you write it in your daytime or something that you've actually been somewhere. And then you can go back and go, oh yeah, we did this. Oh yeah, we went there, which is good. Okay, next is social studies. So here, this outcome is know the history and geography of Canada, have a general understanding of world history and geography, understand Canada's political, social, and economic systems within a global context, and respect the cultural diversity, the religious diversity, and the common values of Canada. Okay, so I always had trouble with social studies because I didn't like any curriculums really. So what we did here was mostly watch videos, movies, discussions, read books, fiction books, discussions on current news topics, take out various library books according to interest, played video games like the Age of Empires to learn about Greek history, and to respect cultural diversity, help out neighbors, begin volunteering at the food bank, attend a citizenship ceremony, study ancient Greece, and did we? I think we did go to the Alberta legislature that year. So what we did for assessment, list of events attended, and mostly observation. So social studies was very much take it as it comes, use those teachable moments. And that's it. That's our 4 cores right there. The rest of the things are more arts, phys ed, personal characteristics, and digital, right? So if you're going to buy video games, you might want to stick it under here. Demonstrate critical and creative thinking skills in problem solving and decision making. Demonstrate competence in using information technologies. That's where I put video games and computer games. And the rest, I used family life. What we did, right? Recognize the importance of personal well-being. Well, we're going to buy soap, we're going to eat vegetables, we're going to have sibling conflict resolution practice, right? That filled out our education plan. So you can kind of see it doesn't have to be schooly. It has to reflect what you do in normal life. If you want it to be more schooly, if you want to list what you're going to do in math every day for 200 days of the school year, fill your boots, go do that. But I guarantee your facilitator will not be reading everything or looking over all that at the end of the year. Before my spring facilitator visit, I would get photos developed and put them in an album so I could show my facilitator our whole year, where we've been, what we've done. And she barely looked at it. She opened one page, looked, and then that was it. Done. Like, all that work for nothing. So if it's for you, do it. But keep in mind, it doesn't have to be onerous. This is as simple as you can. Now, this is a work in progress. So if you want to buy something else, add it on. A lot of the school boards are making this digital now under Google Docs. So it's easy to add things, change, take it off, whatever you want to do. This is your working plan. Because it's so flexible, I don't even know what the benefit of this is, other than to kind of focus people to plan. But it's more just for you and your school authority. Okay, and here's the 22 outcomes. So these are the 20 outcomes here from A to T, and this is the 2 outcomes. A basic education must provide students with a solid core program, blah, blah, blah. Students are expected to develop the knowledge, skills, and attitudes that will prepare them for life after high school, blah, blah, blah. Okay, super easy. Now remember, they only have to get this by the age of 20. Okay, that is it. Now this plan has to accompany your notification form because your school authority has to accept this plan and your notification, okay? And then they guarantee you, and then you're in, and then after October 1st, you can claim for reimbursements then. I would suggest save all your receipts from January of this year, January 2022 forward, because teachers plan for the fall, parents have to plan too. So school boards vary on when they start accepting those. And you have up to 2 years to claim them. So if you switch school boards this year, next year, you can still claim them this year. How much time does home education take? Generally, it takes about 1/10 of the time as school. So for elementary, It takes about 10 to 30 minutes if you're following structured curriculum. That doesn't include reading and field trips, and there's no homework. Junior high might take an hour a day if you're following more structured curriculum for the 4 course. And grade 12 is about 2 to 3 hours a day for 2 core courses and 2 CTS courses. But no homework. Yay! There's lots of places to get hands-on materials. If you're looking at high school is Western Campus Resources, has good high school things, Amazon, things. Okay, I kind of talked about all this. And keep in mind, there's no testing on home education ever, ever, ever. The only testing your child would absolutely have to is if they're going for marks and credits in grade 12 subjects, they need to write diploma exams for the core courses. Okay. Facilitator, socialization. Let's talk about that one. Kids socialize everywhere. Home education is actually a lot more diverse because there's such diversity out there. And kids are not really educating at home, they're educating in the community. Your facilitator has to be a certified teacher, hopefully has been a home education parent, is your partner in the home education, and plays a support role. What help can they provide? If you don't like your facilitator, ask your school authority to change. So in the fall visit, they go over your home education plan with you, see if there's any changes, any questions you have. And then the spring visit, they come out, talk to your child, maybe look at some of these things, but they don't give a mark. And they just sign off saying that the child has progressed through the 22 outcomes, which is super easy. If you're going school, then they're going to have exams. School gives a mark, report cards, parent-teacher interviews. That's school. That's not home ed. Okay, and this is what I did. I just took a scribbler because I knew I'd write a book someday about unschooling. So I took a scribbler and I wrote what my kids did, the field trips we went on, the board games they played, places we went, and slotted them under different subjects because it helps you to see how everyday learning fits into those core subjects. Okay, that's about it tonight. But keep in mind, I know it's scary. It's overwhelming for the first year. Everybody goes through it, but after the first year, just like parenting, you become so much more knowledgeable and experienced. Bringing that newborn baby home, you have so many questions and so much information, and yet that baby thrives. And your child is going to keep on learning. You can't stop kids from learning. And you've been a home educator since birth, really. We're all home educators. We just keep going. So don't worry about it. And there are a ton of benefits. Absolutely. Kids get to sleep. They get confidence. That's my 13-year-old daughter emceeing the Christmas concert. This is my 18-year-old daughter speaking at her graduation at the zoo. It was wonderful. They have lots of time for interests. They have close sibling relationships. Yeah, they fight a lot too, but you get that anyways if you send them to school. But look at it as skill practice in sibling conflict resolution and put it on your education plan. They learn good work habits, love of learning for its own sake, not for marks, great social skills because they're around lots of adults too, and it's a one-on-one education. It's absolutely wonderful. My best takeaway from 23 years of home education is close family and siblings. Absolutely. Okay, at this point, I am going to stop the recording and answer your questions. Okay, so that's it for this session. So thank you very much for joining us. And if you have any questions from anything I presented tonight, feel free to email me at the email here. And happy home education this year. It'll be great, great year.